Hi everyone, my name is Carolina Escalante and today I will be discussing my group's question, how can we reduce poverty around the world through the environmental perspective? To fully understand this presentation, we first need to establish the problem by defining it, which is poverty. And it is a state of one who lacks a usual or socially acceptable amount of money or material possessions as clarified by Merriam-Webster. A harsh reality in which millions of people are facing is this. Almost half the world, over 3 billion people, live on less than $2.50 a day. For a second, just picture the horrifying state of these people are in, and just know how much these people just desire to be in your place. These are the perspectives in which my teammates will be discussing, as well in further presentations. We have the discrimination of minorities, the technological advances perspective, and the educational perspective. As for myself, we'll be answering my group's question through the environmental perspective. Keep in mind that I will be talking about environmental factors that cause poverty, and in the end, we'll be talking about solutions in place that are already established to help reduce poverty and eventually my own solution. You may question, well, how are poverty and environmental issues related? Human activity and the natural environment are very complex and sometimes difficult to understand. All people consume water, food, energy, and other resources which obviously depend on nature, the environment. Any type of productive activity can exhaust natural resources and can cause environmental stress, which harms the people. Environmental issues both affect the rich and poor countries, but would mostly affect the poor countries. Here are some environmental issues that can cause poverty, which are deforestation, global warming, and natural disasters. So the first environmental factor that causes poverty is deforestation. Deforestation is the action or process of clearing a forest or the state of what already have been clearing forest. If deforestation occurs in one country, per se Chile, it could cause water shortages in other countries such as Argentina. Here we have Haiti, which has the highest rates of deforestation and only has slightly 2% of its original forests. Because of that, it is slowing economic activity for the people who heavily rely on these forests. These people utilize forests and tree resources to provide food, fuel for cooking, heat, medicine, shelter, and clothing. Without these resources that these forests provide, it can no longer generate income for those who need the forest to continue living. The second environmental factor which causes poverty is global warming. Global warming is an increase in our Earth's average atmospheric temperature that causes changes to the overall climate. Climate change will lead to a 5% decline in crops by 2030 and another 30% by 2080. This can have a major impact on poor households because less available food would mean higher prices for what food is available. Higher food prices would negatively influence poor people because their budget is spent more on food. In 2008, the World Bank released an article that had said a spike in food prices in sub-Saharan Africa sent over 100 million people below the poverty line. Climate change also affects our water supply because warmer temperatures increase the rate of evaporation of water in our atmosphere. If evaporation increases, it may dry out some areas. The third and final environmental factor which causes poverty are natural disasters. Natural disasters are natural events such as earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, and all cause great damage and or even death. In this picture, we see a lady in Homestead, Florida, struggling after a massive hurricane, which was Hurricane Andrew, that hit, and she is walking over the destroyed houses and more. So in Japan, the poverty rate is already at 16%, and with the massive destructing earthquake that struck in 2011, it just made things even more terrible. Many homes, businesses, land, and agriculture were demolished. People lost their homes. Losing everything would clearly mean they immediately shift into a state of poverty. In 1992, Florida also faced its own nightmare. When a monstrous hurricane hit, it almost wiped out the city of Homestead. Because of this, people had to go live in poverty and receive all the post-hurricane relief as possible. We can't eradicate these natural disasters, but we could try preventing them by trying to protect our environment, because climate change is what ultimately causes these natural disasters. Do you guys see how happy this man is? How happy a person can get when help intervenes. This man called Chub Nor Nim, smiling after living devastating years of his life in poverty after his crops were ruined and his sales decreased. Even the simplest act of help can change a person's life, from being under the state of poverty to eventually their lives changing, when people step in and contribute to the success of others. In this case, help did intervene. World Vision, a global Christian relief organization whose vision is in fighting to overcome poverty and injustice, helped in the community of this man, helping with agricultural methods, training, fertilizers, dam constructions, and more. This man depended on these rice crops for them to sell to other people and helped his economic activity, and with the rice crop sales not advancing, he unfortunately couldn't provide for his family and be under poverty. Current solutions have already been in place. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, there has been many reforestation programs. In Haiti, agroforestry has been introduced, and agroforestry is a method of system of land management by the act of cultivating farm crops and trees. In 2009, Hugh Locke, a co-founder of a community agroforestry development program, and another co-founder, Tim George, searched for a corporate partner that would help fund their vision in wanting to engage farmers in rural areas or in town of Gonavez, Haiti, to help plant trees and overall help reforest Haiti. For the issue of global warming, people have begun to plant more trees in their countries and reduce the use of fossil fuel. For the issue of natural disasters, people have begun to think infrastructure. For example, in Japan, after the earthquake that destroyed everything, they have been advancing technologically and have designed more sustainable buildings, specifically skyscrapers, which can now withhold earthquakes. Lastly, in Florida, the University of Florida has a disaster prep and recovery program which warns the people of the dangers of these natural catastrophes. And we also have the Red Cross, which generously makes millions of contributions to those affected by these natural events. So possible solutions. My own solution would be to create various organizations which could potentially be funded by businesses, having leaders or ambassadors to go all around the world to educate others about the dangers that come with poverty and how environmental issues can eventually lead to poverty. These leaders can go around schools locally and globally to educate the future generations, which are the students, on the dangers of these environmental issues and how these issues can cause poverty and what they can do to prevent it. Following are my sources. Thank you for listening to my presentation.